The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, John, as I keep telling you, maybe not the best, not the worst, but we're certainly on the radio tonight. We got a great guest tonight. We're going to be talking about UFOs and so much more with Dr. Louis right after this.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. And thank you.
Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
Just waiting for that thunder to end. Well, anyway, I'm down at the compound tonight doing a great show with Dr. Louis tonight. Hey, sir, are you there?
I am here, Gary. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine, just trying to keep up with all the work and all the conferences, all the partying and cruises and all the good stuff that is required to service my worldwide clientele. Doing good?
It sounds like it keeps you really busy.
Oh, yes.
You know, you do a radio show, too, don't you? You want to plug that, too?
Well, I have... I'm on the radio on a regular basis. I mean, I have so many contacts from all over the world. I'm going to be doing a radio show from the UK. I have a few radio shows that are planned, and it's all on my website, on my radio page, so I kind of have to recall everything because I'm not in charge of the planning. But anybody interested, just go to www.drturi.com and click on my radio page, and you can tune on to any one of my radio shows.
That way you can check out and see when he's going to be on the next show and all that stuff to keep informed. Now, I noticed from the email you originally sent me about UFOs, you could tell me a lot about UFO experience. What can you say, and what can you say to the listeners?
Well, you know what? I'm nearly 70 years old, and I've been dedicating UFOs and extraterrestrials since the age of 6 years old.
Wow.
My first experiences was mostly by accident. I've always been an ADD. I have tons of mental and physical energy, and it's very difficult to keep me sitting for a long time. So I used to be pretty handful as a child, and to punish me, my parents used to send me in the attic. So the first time I dealt with extraterrestrials, I was in a bed, and in the middle of the night I felt something, touching my foot. I thought it was a cat, and the next thing I see is three little gray at the bottom of my bed, and I was scared. Oh my gosh, I was so scared. So I had it under the blanket. Then I get a little bit more courageous, trying to peep out of my blanket to see if they were there. And one of them came like a couple of inches from my face, and he passed out. I was so frightened. So my first experience was pretty dramatic. And over the years, of course, I realized that each time I was punished, they were never going to take me away. I was always there the morning after, even though that I used to scream my head off not to be left alone with these things. In 1956, there were no UFO researchers. We had no radio. We had no television. We had no sort of any form of information about this phenomenon. So nobody believed me. So I leave it at that. That was my first introduction to that UFO world. It wasn't really good, but that's what it was.
That'd be really scary. And how old were you, Louis?
6 years old, 1956. In fact, again, if you go to my website, you can see the pictures of a child and the type of extraterrestrials that were looking at me. I described them as a 6-year-old would do as a little monkeys with big eyes, because I didn't have any other words. I didn't know better. And you can see the pictures on my website of my first encounter with those ETs. These were the Greys. They are the dignified robots. They are the type of extraterrestrial that fly the scout ships. They cut the cows. They're taking care of the technology. They are the workers, so to speak. They are just dignified robots.
Oh, wow. And boy, 6 years old. You know, I had an encounter of a, what do you call these? A shadow person when I was about your age. Well, I was maybe around 6 or 7, around there. And I tell you, the first thing I did was put the blanket over my head, like, oh, this is going to protect me. It's a natural instinct. But you know what's really bad, Louis, is when you get our age, and if you hear strange noises at night, you still put the blanket over your head.
Yep, that's a subconscious reflex. But, I have a 5 UFOs experience altogether. The second one, with your permission,
please do.
I can elaborate a little bit more on the second one.
Please do.
The second one, I was at the Royal School of Music in London, and now and then I used to come back home. And then I came back home that day on the Sunday, and I saw all my family. I was happy. I didn't see them for months. And then I was asking where my little sister was, and my mom said, well, she went to work. So I was upset because I couldn't see my little sister, and I could only stay like 3 or 4 days. I had to go back to work in London. Anyway, and then she came back. She came, and I said, I thought you were gone. And then she was crying, and she was saying to my mom that she missed the bus, and she was afraid to get fired if she didn't go to work for starting the week on Monday. So my mom says, okay, no problem. Louis is gonna take you there. The only thing is that I was about 18, 19 years old. So during the 70s, we didn't have a cell phone, a GPS. So the way you used to go places is you drive to wherever you're supposed to go, and then you stop and you ask directions, because I couldn't even read a map. That was those days, So, cut the story short, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. My sister is deeply, deeply asleep. And I woke her up and I said, I see a light on the bottom over there. There may be a restaurant, so we're going to stop and I'm going to ask direction. And I was desperate for a cup of coffee. And here we go. I stopped my car in the middle of nowhere on top of a mountain. And I never forget, because I asked my sister whether she wanted to drink, and she said she wanted a Coke, and it was freezing cold. Anyway, so I parked the car. I sat her by the door because I saw 3 big guys at the bar. So I said, you stay by the door. I'm pretty protective of my little sister. Then I went to the bar, and I asked the barman for a cup of coffee and for a Coca-Cola. He gave me the Coke, so I brought that to my sis, and I came back to get my cup of coffee. And then I saw next to me those 3 huge guys. I mean, they were so tall. In fact, my nose would be at the belt of these guys. I thought they were logos because they were so humongous. Guys that constantly cut trees, so they big guys. Next thing I know, I look at them, and then they were like looking ahead of them without any emotion, without any facial movement. They were looking straight ahead on the other side of the bar. And then one of them turned around, and then I look up to him, and he says to me, do you want to play cards? I look at him, and I said, you know what, I'm very tired. I don't want to play cards, and I'm here to have a cup of coffee and to ask direction. He said, come on, play cards. Because he was big, so big. I thought, I hope he had good intentions, so I'm gonna pick up a card. So I pick up a card, and as soon as I read the card, he tells me exactly what it is. He did this like 2 or 3 times, to the point where I thought, wow, how the hell does he do that? So I thought in my mind, I am going to change the 9 of diamond for the queen of spade. And that's where he looked at me, and he goes, Louis, you're not going to change the 9 of diamond for the queen of spade. And I have to remind you, I never met this guy in my life, and he called me by my first name. And all of a sudden, I was holding to the bar because I felt like if somebody stuck a screwdriver between my left to the right temple, and I could barely keep my balance. So I asked the barman, excuse me, where's the bathroom? The bathroom was less than 10 feet away, and the door was open. So I went there, and I felt like I had a chain in my head connecting to this guy. And I was putting some water in my face because I was afraid of passing out. And I was talking to him. I said, "What the hell? Who are you? What are you doing to me?" I felt so invaded, so weak, so nothing. And then I said, "You better tell me what the hell you're doing to me. I don't care how big you are, buddy. You got to tell me what the hell you're doing to me." And by the time I finished to wash my face, 3-5 second top, I was already out of the bathroom. And I went to the bar, and they were gone. So I asked the barman, I said, "Where are they?" Oh, he said, "Oh, they just left." I looked at my sister. She was still asleep by the door, safe. And I went outside, and I looked, and I listened. And I came back again. I said, where's those guys? They must have come here with a car. I said, no, there was no cars. There was nothing. I walked my sister up. I cannot remember if I paid the barman or not. I wake my sister up, and I said, let's get the hell out of here. Now, listen to this, Gary, okay? And I got better thing to do than to make up stories like this, okay? At that very precise moment, all I remember is that I am back home the next day around 9 o'clock in the morning. Where have I been all night? I don't know. My sister and I do not recall anything at all. As soon as I pass the door and I get into my car, I don't know anything at all. And I tell you another thing, that I would never wish on my worst enemy the type of headache I had for weeks following that meeting. So what did they do to me? It's still a mystery today. Is it a follow-up to something that was going to take place later on in my life? I thought so, and I was definitely right. So that is experience number 2. That was the Man in Black.
Interesting.
So
Out of curiosity, how tall were you?
I'm about 5'7", 5'8".
And these guys were what? Well